Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Pennie Community Workgroup for November 18th, 2022. We are so very excited to have you here with us this morning, and we thank you for the privilege of your time. This call is being conducted through MS Teams Live. All attendee lines are muted. We do have Pennie staff who are monitoring the question and answer, and Pennie reps will be on hand to help address any questions that you have. Please feel free to, ask questions. We also follow up with the questions after the meeting. Today's agenda on paper might look small, but we have got a packed agenda for you today. A lot of good topics. We do have some quick updates that we are going to share for the Pennie community, as well as a brief update on the public health emergency. Hannah Turner is going to be providing us with operations updates and system enhancements. And of course, we'll have time for questions and answers. Just as a reminder, the Pennie Community Workgroup is a good resource in that we record these sessions, we post the agenda, the deck, etc., and do so through agency.pennie.com. In fact, if you go to agency.pennie.com, right in the upper right-hand corner across the top, you will see where it says Workgroup. If you click that link, our materials will be there for you and for you to share with others who might not have been able to make it today. Open enrollment is upon us. November 1st to January 15th, Pennie is conducting its open enrollment. Again, an important thing to keep in mind with open enrollment is December 15th is the deadline for January 1 coverage. January 15th is the deadline for February 1st, 2023 coverage. So in support of that, Pennie's call center is both for customers and brokers, is available and here to support Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m., November 1st, January 15th. Saturdays, open 8 to 1. We do have extended hours during the deadlines that I just mentioned. December 15th, 2022, 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. and Sunday, January 15th, 2023, 8 a.m. to 11:59 p.m. There are holiday closings that we have with our call center that we wanted to update you on. Number one is, of course, November 24th for Thanksgiving, Saturday, December 24th for Christmas Eve, and Monday, the 16th of January for Martin Luther King Day. An important thing to note is that the call center will be open on 12/26, the day that Christmas is observed, and on 1/2/23 for New Year's. So please note that the call center will be open during those times. A very exciting update to share with everyone today is the YMCA Health Equity Tour is off and running. Pennie is partnering again with the YMCA this year. You can visit their website, which is highlighted here, for updated events as we roll through 2022 and into 2023, or you can keep an eye on pennie.com right on our homepage. You'll see where not only our sister events and enrollment events are listed, but we also have the Health Equity Tour stops available, and keep an eye open because we'll be coming to a community near you. In addition, it is very important this time of year because of so many updates and messages going out. Pennie would like to encourage everyone who has the ability to share our Facebook, our Twitter posts, our social media posts. Please help us spread the message. Also, for those who would like to order or download marketing materials, the link for our toolkit is here. Please don't hesitate to make a request for educational materials. We'll be happy to send them to you. Or again, you can download them for use on your own platforms. Recertification training. October 31st of 2022 was the deadline for recertification training. However, we know that there are still assisters, there are still brokers who may not have actually recertified and taken their training. You'll note that we are providing you with a window of time until December 15th to make sure that you recertify as an assister on the Pennie platform or as a broker on the Pennie platform. Please know that the links that you see here, the resources here, are live. You can access them. Speaking of resources, everyone needs a little help. And for our assisters, we have created an escalation pathway. That escalation pathway is currently available through our assister resource page. And there are a number of pathways that you can take in order to help customers or help yourself get to a better place. As always, for quick resolution, reaching out to assister broker support at 844-844-4440 is one of the quickest ways. Whether you're an account manager, an agency manager, an assister, or a broker, that resource line is there to help. So please know we have support for you. It's the same way with our brokers. We have a broker resource page. That broker resource page has links to help you with your training and your recertification. If you have any need for login assistance, again, 844-844-4440 is a very quick way to resolve any type of access issue for your particular broker account. As an agency manager, they can help guide you through the process of adding new brokers or customer designations, making a change in customer designation. And of course, for brokers and assisters, the resource line is there to help if you have questions about your customers, their applications, and how we can all help them get to a better place. Earlier, I had mentioned that we had a resource page for our community work group. Again, it's at agency.pennie.com. I'd like to share a very brief update with you about the public health emergency. Last Friday, on November 11th, the federal government was to provide Pennsylvania and the other states with a 60-day notice on the ending of the public health emergency. That date passed without an update. Right now, the current PHE is scheduled to end somewhere around April 11th of 2023. I mentioned this as an important update because this is a historic event here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. There'll be a lot of individuals who utter the words, "I need health insurance." And for those individuals, Pennie and the Department of Human Services has set up a helpers page. The link is here at the bottom. Please know that this is an all hands on deck scenario. We're going to need all the help we can to help make sure that our friends and neighbors across the Commonwealth are aware of what their options are, and more importantly, to help them get protected and get to a better place. So again, this information will be posted. What I'd like to do now is I'd like to turn things over to my colleague, Hannah Turner. She has some very, very exciting updates for you from an operations and a systems perspective. Hannah, please take it away.
Great. Thank you, Scott. Going to go to the next slide. So there's 4 topics that we wanted to talk about today in our operations and systems section here. 2 are sort of refreshers, and then renewals. We're going to talk about life events, reporting life events during open enrollment. For those of you who are in October's work group meeting, I said that we will be doing more on that this month. And then we're going to spend some time talking about resolving income DMIs, and then a refresher on the broker portal search for existing customers functionality. So let's go right on into the refresher on renewals. So we've had some questions come in about 2023 renewals, and in particular for customers who were renewed with no APTC. So we discussed renewals more broadly in the October work group. If you have questions about other aspects of it, please, there's more information there. But let's dig into these folks who were renewed with no APTC. There's a variety of reasons that could have happened, and typically they just need to come in and update. Well, they may just need to come in and update their application. It sort of depends on the reason why they were renewed without APTC. So I've listed here sort of the first sort of quick 4 different ways that you can look at these customers' accounts to quickly identify the reason why they likely were renewed without APTC for 2023. So the first thing, and probably the easiest thing to look at, is did they have financial assistance in 2022? If they didn't have a financial assistance application when we ran renewals in October, they aren't going to be renewed with financial assistance, period. And then you can look at next, what was their eligibility determination for 2023? Were they found potentially eligible for Medicaid or CHIP, or medical assistance, MA, whichever term you use? If they were found potentially eligible for MA or CHIP, then they would not have APTC on their auto renewal. So that you can see pretty quickly from either your sister or broker dashboard. There's like an eligibility button, or you can see it on their customer dashboard right there, sort of towards the top. And I wanted to call out that, there are customers who in 2022, their income was above the Medicaid eligibility thresholds, but for 2023, their eligibility might be now, that same income might now be below the Medicaid eligibility thresholds. And that's because when the new plan year starts, we use the updated, more current federal poverty level tables. So they're slightly higher. So that's why you could have someone with the same income in 22 and 23 who would be fall into the potential Medicaid eligibility bucket for 23, but not for 22. So once you've rolled out those 2 things, then you're down to looking at their application a little bit more. So the probably next most common thing that we see is number 3 here. This would be customers who they did not provide us consent to check the trusted data sources, the Federal Data Services Hub, at renewal. So when someone submits their application for financial assistance, at that point, they're giving us authority to check the hub right now for that application. But there is an option on that attestation page at the end of the application, which says, I'm also going to give Pennie authority to check the hub when it's renewal time. And it's optional. Customers don't have to do that. They can choose to do that and give us up to 5 years of that consent. And so every year, if they've given us that consent, that decrements each year. So either the customer just didn't provide that consent at all for us to check at renewal, or maybe they did previously give us the authority to check the hub at renewal, but they've kind of used up all the years that they've given us, so that we were down to no years of consent left. So the easiest way to check if that's the case is to go ahead and edit their 2023 renewal application and jump ahead to the signature page. And right there, you'll see what was already populated for the renewal consent. It'll say, if it's this situation, you'll see, there's no consent provided. So that's how you know if that's the issue. If that's the case, if it was just lack of consent, then the customer just needs to update the application and submit to provide consent for us to check. And then if they're eligible for APTC, it gets automatically applied to their enrollments. This is a population that we're definitely are looking to do some additional outreach to beyond just the regular notices. So we do have a couple of different campaigns for these folks. So there's emails and outbound call campaigns to these folks that were throughout open enrollment. We want to make sure that they come in and update their app if they want to get determined eligible for financial assistance for 2023. And then after you've checked those first 3 things, if If you're still not sure, still can't find a reason why the customer was ineligible for APTC, now that you're in and editing their 23 renewal application, you can look more closely at some of the different answers. I listed a few are things that can sometimes cause someone to be ineligible for APTC and sometimes get overlooked. So things like they indicated they are not planning on filing a tax return, or they are married but filing separately. Those will make you ineligible for APTC. And then also another place to look is that reconciliation of APTC question. It's on the last section of the application before signatures. And that's where the question asks you if you've received APTC in previous years, then have you appropriately reconciled that with the IRS? If you say, yes, I received APTC a few years ago, and no, I did not reconcile that with the IRS, that would make someone ineligible for APTC. So that's another place to look. And then if you still aren't sure, obviously give us a call, and Pennie customer service reps can help you take a look at it. But we wanted to give you a few places that are going to cover most scenarios and give you a good place to start off with. Okay. And just a reminder that I've got the link there for anything else around renewals. There's some more information back in that October work group. This is just an area that we have seen a few questions coming in, so we wanted to just refresh. Okay, sorry, Scott, thank you. Okay, so let's go into the next topic, which is reporting life events during open enrollment. So there's a few reasons that this can be confusing. One, because during open enrollment, you can customers can be shopping using either open enrollment rules, which anybody can shop during open enrollment, but you get certain effective dates. But if someone also has a life event, then they can be shopping sort of under two different sets of rules at the same time. So they would have open enrollment shopping available to them, but they might also have special enrollment shopping available to them. And depending upon which path they take, could result in different coverage start dates. So this is an area that we did have some confusion around. There was definitely people who had trouble reporting their life events during open enrollment last year. We did do a few system enhancements to make it a little bit easier to report your life events during open enrollment. So I wanted to go through what that process looks like. I'll show you a bunch of screenshots and run through a few scenarios. So we can make sure you see how they all how the flow works. But basically it comes down to these three questions. The first is you just need to ask yourself, what coverage start date? So you've got someone with a life event. What coverage start date is that life event going to give them? Then ask yourself, do you need to make applications to both, updates to both applications for both plan years, or just one? And then lastly, we'll go through how you actually report the life event, what you'll see on the screens itself. So going on next, we'll go look at step one. So when you're looking to shop based on a life event, you need to determine which application you need to be updating. And so either this year, it's either the 2022 application or 23 application. And the key thing is you need to think of the coverage start date. You don't want to look at the event date, because the event date tells you when the event occurred, but doesn't mean that that's when the coverage would happen. So for example, if you are reporting an event like a marriage or loss of MEC in December for coverage that would start 1/1/2023, that event occurs in 22, but you're going to be shopping for coverage starting in 23, right? That December 22 event isn't giving you any 22 coverage. So that you'd only be shopping under your 23 application. So it's just a little bit of a mindset change between thinking of the date of the event versus the date that the coverage would be in effect. Next one. And then now that you've figured out kind of that aspect, you need to then remember, do I need to update both the 22 application and 23 application, or just one of those? So depending upon the date of the event and when you're shopping, you may end up in a scenario where you need to enroll in both 22 and 23 coverage. So in the example here, we've got a marriage reported in November, and of 22, and so you want to add the spouse to get coverage starting 12/1/22. So for that scenario, you would need to update the 2022 coverage and the 2023 coverage, because you want coverage from 12/1/22 through 12/31/22, but you also likely want the coverage for the spouse for starting 1/1/23 forward. You don't have to do enrollment in both. The system is designed so that you can, could elect one and not the other. But you just need to think that part through. The order in which you do those applications, the enrollments, whether you update the 22 application first versus the 23 application, doesn't actually matter. So you can go whichever you end up in first, that's fine. But you just do need to remember that you need to think through whether you need to make updates to both plan years or not. And now let's go to step 3, how you report the life event. So there are a variety of ways that the customer dashboard might look slightly different because of different aspects of the customer's current situation. So what I'm going to show you on these next few slides, on the left side, you're going to see the 2022 application, and then on the right side, what you'd see for 23 applications. So in this first slide, we're looking at applications that you're submitting between 11/1 and 12/15. In other words, these are the open enrollment period where you would be getting a 1/1/23 start date for open enrollment. On the left, you'll see the 2022 application dashboard looks just like it looked before open enrollment started, and like it's looked for the last 10 plus months since open enrollment last closed. You'll update the application, and this is what you'll see on the dashboard. You'll see the confirm event and finalize plans button. When you click that, that lets you go into reporting the event, and you get your coverage based on the appropriate event rules. For your 23 application, you might see two different things, but so you might see what you see at the top here. This is the shop for plans button. That's just giving you open enrollment shopping. When you go into that, it's just a 1/1 coverage start date. And you can kind of tell because it's not asking you for an event. But if you're not sure, when you click on it, you'll see on one of the first screens into plan shopping, the coverage date and what date it's providing. And you'll see that it's following the open enrollment rules. Depending upon, you may update your application with event and actually get a confirm life event button. So either one of those will get you shopping. Shop for plans gets you to 1/1 because it's just open enrollment dates, but the confirm life event might end up with different dates depending upon the life event. So we've got a few examples to show you there. Now let's look at what happens if you submit your app after 12/15. So now we're in the period between 12/16 and 1/15, where open enrollment is giving you 2/1 start dates. So again, the 2022 screens, that doesn't change. It's when you update your app, you're just going to see the confirmed life event. That's because even though it's open enrollment for 2023 coverage, not for 22. So it just looks like it's looked for the last 10 months of SCPs. But for 2023, you're still going to see the same basic screens that we just had on the last screen. So you're going to see a shop for plans. That gets you into like open enrollment because you're not reporting an event. Or you might see a confirmed life event. But if you have a life event, but you don't see the confirmed life event button, you will have a new banner message, which you'll see in the top screenshot here, which says, hey, you've got however much time left in open enrollment. If you want to shop for open enrollment, click the shop for plans button. But if you need coverage for a different effective date than 2/1, click here on the confirm life event link in the banner message. What that does is say, if you don't have the big blue confirm event button on your dashboard, that's a shortcut that takes you and puts you into that flow so that you would get the same reporting a life event screen that you would normally see at any other time of the year. Okay. So let's look at some examples here of how you figure out which plan year to update and kind of what you might see. So our first example is a marriage on December 2nd, and we're submitting this on December 10th. So it's before the 12/15 deadline for OE 1/1 shopping. So for that event, the marriage rules say that coverage would start the first of the month following the event. given I'm shopping on 12/10. So I'm looking for coverage that starts 1/1/2023. So I've got a 22 event date, but my coverage start date is 2023. So I'm really only looking at one plan year that I need to make updates to. So all I would do is go in and update my 2023 application, add spouse or enroll brand new, and click on shop for plans because I'm getting the same coverage date as OE rules. Just goes straight through. Pretty simple flow here. Let's take this same example though of a marriage on December 2nd, and let's say we're shopping just a little bit later in December. Go ahead to the next slide. So we're still looking at a 2022 event date that's going to give me 2023 coverage start date. But now we're shopping after 12/15. So my OE shopping would give me a 2/1 start date, but that's not what I want. I want a 1/1 start date. So I will see one of the two options on the left side. Again, it depends on some other things in your application, but it doesn't really matter. What I want to show you is that no matter which option you see, you'll always have a confirm event button, either as the big blue button on the bottom of the screen, or in the top, you'll have the banner message that has the link there. And you notice you don't want the shop for plans button because that's going to give you the open enrollment shopping. And if you're not sure, like I said, you click the button for shop for plans and you'll see that's a 2/1 start date and be like, oh yeah, no, that's not right. That's not what I'm looking for. I need to report a life event. No matter which way you report the life event on the dashboard, it takes you to the same page for reporting a life event. You report your marriage with the 2022 event date. And it'll give you the appropriate 1/1 shopping dates. So I'm using the 2023 application and reporting the event date in 2022, and I'm getting my 2023 coverage start date. So again, sort of disassociate the event date from the plan year. It's really about coverage dates, and that's how you know which plan year you should be looking at. Okay, next one. So another scenario here is, let's say it's the same time, it's late December, but I've got a future event date. So, there are a couple of events that you can report in advance. Loss of MEC is one. So we've got someone who's going to lose MEC in February. So that event date would actually result in a 3/1/2023 effective date. So I can't shop with open enrollment rules because that only gives me a 2/1, and that's not what they want. So I would follow the same path as I just did on the previous example, click the confirm life event button and report my future event, which is my loss of MEC with the 2/5/2023 event date, and it'll take me into the shopping for 3/1. Okay. Now, just for clarity, always like to throw in a birth scenario because you get short prorated months in here, but it's actually really the exact same flow. So I've got a birth on January 5th, reported on January 10th. So still reported within open enrollment, but I need coverage going backwards to the birth date. Same thing, either way, I have the confirm event button or the link at the top. Either one gets me to reporting the life event flow, and then it's just like you always do. You report the birth, put the birthday in there, and that'll take you into shopping for the correct effective date, which is the date of event. So I've got one more scenario, and this is where we've got multiple plan years involved. So apologies for trying to fit it all on one screen, but I wanted to walk you through what it looks like when you do have multiple plan years. So here we are in January, but reporting a birth back to November of 22. So we're still within our 60-day window, but birth coverage for birth goes all the way back to the event date. So now I've got coverage. I need to sign up for coverage in both the 2022 plan year, because there should be coverage from 11/25 on through 12/31, and I need to enroll for the 2023 coverage if I want the child to have coverage for 23. So order doesn't matter, but we're going to start from the left and just go with the 2022 application. And as always on 2022 applications, you're just going to see the confirm event button. You go click there, report the birth with 11/25/22, takes you to shopping. Easy peasy, just like you've been doing now. Then you realize you want to do the second part, which is enrolling for 23 coverage. Again, you're going to use whichever of the confirm event buttons are on your dashboard. It takes you to the exact same screen. It looks just like what you did on 22, and you're going to put the same information in, the birth and the November 22 date of birth. And this is for your 2023 application, and you'll get shopping for 1/1/2023 because the system sees you're looking at a 2023 application. So even though the event date is November of 22, it can see that you're still within the 60-day window, and the earliest coverage it can give you in 2023 is 1/1/2023. So yeah, if you guys have any questions on these scenarios, please, can give customer service a call. They can walk you through it and help you out. But I do think, hopefully you've seen it's pretty straightforward, that no matter what, you might have slightly different views on your dashboard, but you'll have a confirm life event button that gets you into the life event flows. And really all you just remember is what coverage dates am I looking for, and then updating the appropriate applications based on coverage dates. Okay. So moving into our next topic is everyone's favorite, which is talking about income DMIs and how to resolve income DMIs. So just do a quick refresher just to make sure we're all on the same page. We talked a lot in depth about DMIs back in our May community workbook, community work group. But so the DMIs result because when we get a customer's application, we need to verify each of the aspects of the application that tie back to an eligibility criteria. And we have to check that against the trusted data sources, the Federal Data Services Hub, basically. If we cannot verify the application information against the hub, then it's an inconsistency and we create a DMI. What that does is say, okay, we couldn't verify the information against the hub. We still have a requirement under federal law to verify the information on the application. So we just need the customer to provide us documentation that will verify what they provided what they attested to on their application. That's the 90-day reasonable opportunity period. If you don't provide the appropriate documents by the end of the reasonable opportunity period, then adverse action is taken, either termination of the coverage or loss of financial assistance, depending upon what the DMI was. All but income DMI apply at the individual person level. So you might have just one person impacted with an SSN DMI or a lawful presence DMI. But when you have an income DMI, that applies at the entire household level because it's the full household income that is the eligibility item. Now on your screen on like the customer dashboard, you'll see it listed under the primary tax filer, but it's household income. The notice is clear, it's household income. So just always remember it's household income. And with the income DMI, that's the one that if you don't resolve it, you still have coverage, but you lose financial assistance. And again, that's a prospective loss, so you will lose it after the end of the 90-day reasonable opportunity period. Next slide. So how to resolve an income DMI. No matter what DMI you have, there is, we need documentation to verify the eligibility item. There's a couple of different places where you can get information on the types of documents that you can provide. The document upload page itself within the customer portal has a list of different documents you can provide. The DMI, the eligibility notice and the DMI reminder notices, we do send 3 reminder notices throughout the reasonable opportunity period. Those notices have a pretty extensive list of documents in them. And then of course there's always FAQs. We do have a link to the FAQ on household income here if you don't have that already bookmarked. So unique challenges with verifying income. Income DMIs are by far our largest volume of DMIs. And I think a lot of these unique challenges play a part in that. So remember the application that they're submitting, like right now, folks that are submitting applications for 2023 coverage, they're submitting that application with their and determining what income they expect to have at the end of 2023. So they're having to project forward. And then obviously there's risk if you don't project correctly, right? Because you could end up having a risk of paying back APTC. And then, so they're projecting forward. The data that we have access to verify the income is backwards, is looking back. Like the IRS data is 1, maybe 2 years old, depending upon timing. And so, a lot of things can happen in, 1, 2, 3 years, and the difference between the data that we're checking and the future projection that the customer is making on their application. In addition, so there's, normal changes, life changes that happen in that period of time. There's also people with certain, who just inherently have variability of income, especially like hourly seasonal workers, that so their income is not as predictable. And also people with self-employment income, also very unpredictable, that can just be challenges for their projections. So what we've done is we do have some about as generous of thresholds as we can to say if the difference between the information you've provided on your application and the data source that we have from the hub, if it's within this threshold difference, then it's acceptable. We'll consider that close enough and mark it as verified. So, we don't trigger an income DMI unless the difference between what's on the application and what we get from the data hub is 40% or $20,000. So it's pretty significant differential there. But if it's any larger than that, we have to generate a DMI. So now comes, how do we, the documentation part. Go ahead, thank you. So what we see is probably the most common issues with the documents we receive regarding trying to resolve an income DMI. First thing is that we'll get documentation that's only for one person in the household and not all of the different household members who have income on the application. So, documentation for one person doesn't equal the whole household's income, and so it's not sufficient. We have to reject that. So that's why I was talking earlier. Remember that income is always at the household level. So anyone who has income on the application, all of that needs to be provided in the documents you provide for the DMI. The second thing, I guess there's a little bit of overlap here, but the documents don't add up to the income on the application. When we review the documents that you provide for income DMIs, we have to basically add up all of the documents that you provided and say, okay, that equals X amount of annual income, and then compare that to what's on the application. And if they are different, we can't verify the DMI. So that's something that you can very quickly do a good sort of double check and sanity check when you're going to upload your documents, skim through them and just with the application side by side and just say like, yep, I've got all of the people on the application who've listed income. I've got all those documents provided, and quick math, adding it up to say, okay, yep, that's the math matches what's on the application, and that'll, if you mark those things off, that'll help your chances of it being sufficient documentation. That'll increase a lot. And then the third piece is to look at the documents and make sure it's not missing information. So you'd be surprised how often we get documents that don't have any name on them. Like an account statement has no name. We can't even know that that's really even someone in this household. We see pay stubs, but there's no information on either who it's for, what that payment frequency is. Like, right, we don't know if a pay stub represents monthly, bi-weekly, weekly pay, whatever. And again, when we're reviewing those documents, we are looking at all the documents and then adding them up to determine these documents represent X amount of annual income. And if we can't see and figure those things out, like frequency, who it belongs to, another thing, or we can't read the document at all, then we aren't able to, and it's going to get rejected. So now the topic everyone probably wants to talk about. What do you do if there is no documentation available for some or all of the income that's been reported on the application? So it is the customer has to make a good faith effort to find all available documentation for, even if it's just portions of the income, but for everything that's on their application. Only after they've exhausted those efforts can a customer potentially provide an income attestation form. We're going to talk a lot more about the income attestation form. But it's important to note that if you have documentation for some of the income sources, but not every single one that's on the application, you should provide all the documentation that you have, in addition to, and then use that attestation form to supplement that. You basically should not be providing an attestation form as a first round with nothing else with it. So I think I've jumped ahead, but let's go to the next slide here. So we do have we've just recently updated the attestation form. If you've downloaded it, you should always go back to the resources page. It's right there in the customer resources page. And what's different about this slide is really these two things here. One, you need to check the appropriate scenario of those 3 boxes. This is on the first page. And you'll notice all of those scenarios, you have to be able to show to us that you've attempted to obtain the documentation before using the attestation. And in almost all of those, you're providing us some documents with the attestation form. Even if those documents alone might not be enough to verify and resolve the DMI, you should have some documents that go with the attestation form. So you're going to check whichever one of those options is appropriate. So either you have partial documentation and the attestation is to explain the other pieces that you don't have documentation for. Second option is you've already submitted documents and they've been rejected, and this is to submit in addition to that to explain the difference. And the third one is in particular calling out those self-employment income and investment income folks, where that is very fluctuates a lot, and they should be providing other information. So you'll pick one of those scenarios. Notice none of those scenarios say, I'm just uploading this as the first time for my DMI, because that's not going to work. Once you've checked your scenario, then it's actually, I think, at the top of the second page where you would actually complete the attestation and sign it. There's a section for where you are supposed to provide a detailed explanation of why you're unable to provide proper documentation. That is required. Please don't skip it. If you skip either of these things, it's going to get rejected. So please, I know that's going to be frustrating, so just be sure to do that on the first try. There's pretty much not, I've never seen anyone provide too much detail in the detail explanation section. There's a big section, big space there. You can attach extra explanation if you need to, but don't just, like I said, I've seen plenty of people not put anywhere near enough detailed explanations there. So if you're concerned if it's enough, you might want to put more, just to at least get started here. Okay, so why do we have to do this? Go to the next slide. Why do we have to collect documents? Why can't we just submit the income attestation form? Get it. I mean, income DMIs are a lot of work for all of us, customers, for you, brokers, assisters, for our customer service team reviewing all of these things. So the problem is that the federal rules say that attestation forms cannot be the first document submitted. There might be extremely limited circumstances where that may apply, but they're extremely limited. So we have to follow those federal rules. So and there's a purpose there. the context around DMIs is that people are getting a benefit, the advanced premium tax credit. So you can attest to information on your application, but the regs require that all of those eligibility criteria to be verified. We do everything we can to verify from existing data sources, right? That's where we check against the hub. But if we can't verify it, then the reasonable opportunity period, that 90-day period, is the opportunity for the customer to provide something else that verifies what they've already attested to on their application. So if you think about it, you've attested to something on your application. If the separate verification of what you've attested to is another attestation, that's not really actually a verification. That's just attesting to an attestation. And that's why the income attestation alone is really not permissible under the federal rules. It's purely a last resort if there's absolutely no other documentation. What is more appropriate is that we've seen the vast majority of customers are actually able to submit some documentation. It might be for just some portions of their income. It might be, here's this from last year, but it's slightly out of date, and here's why that it's changed. So what really should be happening is provide us the documentation that you have, and then you can use the attestation form as a supplement, which explains, here's the documents I have, but they're not exactly matching. And here's why, what I've attested to for 23, why I think 23 is going to be different than the 2022. So we've got a few examples that I wanted to walk through with you all of some things that we've seen recently that, where there's been question about, why can't I use the income attestation form? So let's start with this first one. We've got a household, they're making $50,000. It's two people, right? So we've got one person who's got Social Security and pension benefits, and then we've got a second person who also has some Social Security and some retirement or investment income. This second person in the household is planning to retire at the beginning of 2023. So they haven't actually started taking yet their retirement investment income. So the question is, can the customer just submit an attestation form? And hopefully by now you know that the answer is no. You can't just submit an attestation form. So let's talk about what they should submit. So they should submit the documentation they have. So Social Security, anybody receiving Social Security, they're going to have a way to show that what they're receiving. So that's 2 of the 4 pieces of income that there should be documentation for. The person receiving pension benefits probably already has ability to show some statements or payments they've received. If this member 2 hasn't actually started retirement, so they don't have anything they can show for that 4th piece of income, that $25,000. So what they would do is provide the documentation for the other 3 pieces of that account towards the total household income, and then attach an attestation form with an explanation of why they can't, this person is planning to retire in 2023. Their plan is to take $25,000 out of investments as their retirement income, but the withdrawals haven't started yet. So there's no documentation available for that, but we have provided documentation for all the other sources of income. So see how that's very different than just submitting an attestation form for all of that, right? So there are some pieces that maybe you can't show, but there's other pieces that you often can provide documentation for. Thanks, Scott. Go to the next one. Okay, so second one, let's talk about someone with some variable part-time seasonal work. So we've simplified one person. They've got 2 jobs. One is a part-time job, one's a seasonal job. They've been working at those 2 jobs for a while, but their hours were recently reduced at their part-time job, and their seasonal work, they're planning on taking a little bit more seasonal work to help make up for that. So the $30,000 is what they're projecting for this year. So can they submit an attestation form, just an attestation form? Nope. What they could do is they're going to have pay stubs for 22 for both of those jobs. Even if those pay stubs don't exactly match what they are projecting, then they should provide those pay stubs. And then the attestation form goes with it and says, here's why I'm projecting something different for this job. This part-time job, it's going to reduce my hours. I'm going from 30 hours a week to 20 hours a week, whatever. For the seasonal work, I'm planning on picking up more hours, and it's going to look like about a 25% increase. That's why for 22, I received $8,000 in income for that job, and now I'm projecting $10,000 because of the extra hours. Okay. So when you think of the attestation form as a supplement, it kind of makes more sense why. Provide the documents you have, and then the supplement goes with it to explain why there might be differences. Okay, and then the last, I think, example here is one with self-employment income, and I've got rental income thrown in here too. And in this scenario, the person's 2022 self-employment income was very different than what their 23 is projected to be. Having some change to their business model or something. So can they just submit an attestation form? Nope. Thank you. Of course, they cannot just submit an attestation form. So they likely should have some documentation of their rental income, checks, payments coming in, a lease, something. And they will have had some income in 22 for self-employment that they can provide documents for. They may even have documents that show why they're projecting something different for 23. And then they can include an attestation that it helps to explain the difference and why 22 showed such and such amount, but for 23, they're projecting it to be a different amount. Okay. So obviously these are just illustrative examples. Can you go back for a second, sir? Each scenario is going to vary ever so slightly, but wanted to give you a sampling of the different ways that you can really rethink how you are approaching income DMI documents, and including with the attestation form. If you are not sure about what documents to provide in a certain situation, take a look and think about the attestation as like the supplement to help explain what documents you can provide, but also feel free to give us a call. Pennie customer service reps, they know this stuff pretty well inside and out. They see a lot of these different scenarios, and they can maybe look at the application. You can talk about what you have, what you don't have, and you're not sure what to provide. They can help you, understand, okay, that would be yes, that would probably be enough, or no, that would not be sufficient because of X, Y, and Z. Okay, so you can use them to also help clarify and with different circumstances that are unique to certain customers. Okay. Okay. Lastly, I have a few minutes still. Did want to do a quick refresher on new functionality that we deployed in October, beginning of October, this is just for the broker portal for now. We are hoping to maybe have that into the sister portal in the future, because we've gotten some questions on it. So I thought it'd be good to recap this. If you want more details, it's in the September work group. But essentially, we had, prior to this enhancement being deployed in October, you have the add a new individual tool. That there was a link on the broker dashboard, sister dashboard as well, that lets sister or broker create a new household record on behalf of customers and that have never applied through Pennie before. And then the sister brokers automatically connected to that customer and can help them through the normal channels. There's limitations to that functionality. It can create duplicate household records for certain customers, which creates lots of different downstream impacts to the customers, sometimes on their coverage. So those are really things that we want to avoid. And that add new individual functionality doesn't really have a way for you to get designated to an existing customer's account, other than the two ways you can do it now, which is calling Pennie customer service with the customer on the line, and a CSR can do the designation for the customer, or having the customer log into their account. Neither of which anybody's really thrilled about having to do, but those were the only options available before. With the new search existing customers tool, it's replaced the add new individual for brokers. And it's replaced that link, but it does the same stuff so that you can still create a household for a customer who's never applied from Pennie before. That's still there. That's part of this tool. But we've gotten a couple of extra things with this new functionality. One, it checks for whether that customer has an existing household so that we don't get inadvertently create duplicates, right? The customer may not even know that they have an existing account, so they don't realize when they might tell you they don't have an account, but if they do, you could inadvertently be creating duplicates under the old system. Not anymore. And then also, because you're able to search for whether they have an existing record, you're actually also able to designate yourself to that existing record if it already exists without having to call Pennie customer service or have that customer log into their account, which is really good. And that's why we were really excited about doing this. So next slide, which is the last one, I think. It's very simple. It is obviously different than what it was there before, but it's pretty straightforward. It's really 3 steps. First is you type in basic information about the customer, like his name, DOB, and social, and then you have to verify their identity. You just have to type in the information on one of the different, there's like a really, really long list of documents that you can provide, and just type in the information for that. Almost all of those documents on that list are things that you already need for the application. You don't need to upload anything. You're just verifying that the person you're talking to is who they say they are and typing in the information for us. That's it. Honestly, I would probably be using Social Security card all the time because they already need all that for their application. So step 2 is where you search by their social. So this is where you're searching to see, do they already have an existing account or not? And I will note that this functionality doesn't, for customers who have no social, you're going to have to use the old existing methods for getting designated for them. So using calling customer service or the customer logging into their portal. This won't work because, yeah, it just won't work for those folks that don't have a social. Once you do that search, you'll come up with a couple of different options. Basically, all those options are either going to let you, the first one says, we don't see this person anywhere in our records. Great, you can move forward and start the new application. That's what you were doing before with the add new individual link. We might sometimes find a record, say, oh wait, this person already exists, and actually they're already designated to you. That happens, like, somebody maybe changed their name, they used their nickname in one place or a former name, so you searched before and didn't find them. You might get a multiple matches found, and in that scenario, this person already has multiple accounts, so you're gonna have to use the old methods, either calling over the phone to get designated or the customer logging into their account. And that's because with those multiple matches, we can't be sure which is the right account to link you up to. Or you might find, the customer's record is found. You can just, and then you can designate yourself as the customer's broker. When you do that, just like any time a broker or a sister designation changes, the customer gets a notice of that change and, tells them to call if they think there's any designations made in error. So it's relatively straightforward. I encourage you, if you're having trouble, go look at the September work group. We have a few more screenshots of each of these different steps. Or you can also call Pennie customer service, the 4440 number, and they can walk you through this and help answer any questions you might have. It does seem pretty straightforward. We've seen some really positive feedback on it. So I know just change can be, want to make sure that folks are just prepared for the change and are comfortable using it. So with that, Scott, I think that was the last one.
Yeah, Hannah, thank you so very much for all of that information. I know that I personally was enlightened by the whole conversation we just had with you. So thank you so much. Folks, we are coming up on time. I do see where there have been several questions posted in the chat. We always download these questions and provide a Q&A response. In terms of questions, quick questions that we might be able to answer here, Hannah, Marianne had a question. Can we or should we delete clients under our delegation if no longer enrolled in Pennie? That's pretty unique. I've never heard that one before.
Yeah, so it depends on, I mean, whether you have a relationship with the customer still or not, they're going to come back and work with you. That's fine. You do have the ability to, I'd like to think of the designation process as a handshake. So both parties have like kind of part of it. So the customer selects you and then you accept them. That's how you get the initial designation. But it also means that each party could end the designation. So the customer could say, I'm sorry, I'm not going to work with you anymore, and just end it. But you also, if broker or sister, have the ability to end a designation through your own portal, where you can, say, can't remember if it just says de-designate. I haven't looked at the term, but it's right, should be right there when you're in your broker portal looking at your list of customers. So you do also have the ability to end that relationship if whatever reason you feel is appropriate. But we don't automatically remove someone's broker or sister designation when they are no longer actively covered.
Fantastic. And Hannah,
Scott,
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I did see one that was I wanted to try to address, if that's okay.
Sure.
Which was a question about the FPL guidelines and why we update them at open enrollment. So the federal poverty levels are usually updated like late in January. So we're in the 2023 plan year right now, but 2023 FPLs won't be available until late, sometime in January probably, for the 2023 FPLs. That means that we're usually, for exchange eligibility purposes, we're usually running eligibility a year behind with in terms of if you just Google what the FPLs currently are, you might see right now, you'll see 2022 FPLs are the most current, and that's what we're using. Because at the start of each plan year, we are using the most current FPLs available at that time. We don't change the FPLs that we use during the plan year. So the FPLs that we start the plan year off with, we keep consistent throughout the plan year. And it has to do with how we calculate eligibility. If we were to change FPLs in the middle of the year, that would change a lot of things. So the FPLs we use are consistent throughout the year. But if you recall back in the spring, I think in April, we did update the FPLs at that time for Medicaid, because Medicaid and CHIP are looking at current monthly income. Their rules, they are able to take the update. You start using updated FPLs earlier than we are. So usually from about April until the start of the new plan year, we actually are using two different sets of FPLs, one for Medicaid and CHIP based on their rules. They take the new one earlier, and then we wait till the next plan year before we update our FPLs for exchange eligibility. So I think we covered that probably in April work group last year, where we talked about the fact of how you have the two different FPLs going at the same time, one for exchange, one for Medicaid. So just remember to be careful. If you're just Googling FPLs, you might be using the right one, but there's a reason why we don't change the FPLs in the middle of the plan year, because for exchanges, because our eligibility keeps it consistent throughout a plan year.
Fantastic, Hannah. Well, with that being said, folks, I see we're at time and I want to be respectful of everyone's time. We will download the Q&A and internally we'll review that and post the Q&A to the Pennie Community Workgroup webpage for a resource. Thank you again so very, very much for the privilege of your time today. Again, for customer service, with regard to brokers and assisters, you can reach out to 844-844-8040. For customers directly, they can reach out specifically to 844-844-8040, or connect with us through Pennie.com. We have a live chat feature now, so please keep that in mind. And again, everyone, stay safe. Thank you so much for your support. And thank you again to Hannah and to our operations, IT, and policy teams here at Pennie for their contributions to this meeting. And we hope to see you again very soon. Please If you need anything, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We'll be here to help. Thank you so much. Be well.